Hello and welcome to the 18th video in this beginner series program a tile puzzle game on the iPad. So in this video we're going to implement the easy and hard buttons, which will shuffle the board up, allowing then the user to try and solve the puzzle. Before we do that, I just want to have a quick talk about how we might go about doing this. The first way you might think of doing this, or the best way, is to randomly shuffle the board occupant array up and then simply walk through this array and move the tiles to the appropriate positions. The problem with this is, whilst it works quite well and it's very quick, is that there's no guarantee that the puzzle is then solvable by the shuffle method. I'm not sure myself whether if you completely just pick the tiles up and then randomly assemble them again, you can then get back to the original starting picture. So a better way to do this is to write a function which simply looks for the given position what sliding moves are available. So in this one here there are two. You could slide this tile or you can slide this tile. And if we slide this one there are then three. This tile, this tile, this tile, and so on. And the function that we'll be writing in this video is a file that selects randomly a tile move. So before we start programming the code, it's worth asking how do we detect what moves are available. Well, it's actually quite simple. Let's say we had this position on the board. We would loop through all of the 25 squares on the board until we find the empty square. And if you remember, on this board we go from 0 down the bottom left here up to 24 the top right. If we want to go on the board up one row, it's +5, down one row is -5, left one column is -1, and right one column is +1. So when we're on a particular square, let's say we've got the empty square here, we're on column number 4 and row number 3, because it's column 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 and row 0, 1, 2 and 3. So we can do something to say, okay, we know where the empty square is. If the row we're on is less than 4, then the tile at +5 can move to our empty square, because we're not on the top row, so we know that the tile above can move down. Likewise, we can say if the row is greater than 0, then the tile underneath can move up into our square, because if we're on row 0, the bottom row, then there's no tile below to move to our square. We can also say if the column is less than 4, then the tile on the right can move to our square. Well, our column here is 4, so this can't happen, and indeed there's no tile on the right. The next tile at +1 is actually this one on the top left here. And then we can also say if the column is greater than 0, then the tile at -1, so on the left, can move. And that's exactly what we're going to do and how we're going to make a random move. So we'll look at all of the tile moves available, store these in an array. There'll be obviously a maximum of 4 moves available, like this, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we'll just pick one of those at random and make that move. So let's get on with programming that then. So I'll move down now just to above the init function, where we're going to put these functions in. And the first function is going to be called make random move. So I'll get the definition and the first bit of code for actually doing this. So we have here our move array. I've given space of up to 5 integers, and these will contain the from squares, the square of which the tile is sitting on that's going to move, and counts the number of moves found. Empty square will store where the empty square is. So like I said, we loop through the board here and find where the empty square is. Then I'll just scroll this up a little bit. And now all we need to do is find the row and the column of the empty square, and then depending on where this row and column is, we do exactly what I just said in the example using the simulator. We say if the row is less than 4, then at square +5, add a move. If it's greater than 0, add a move. Column 4 and 0, add a move at +1 and -1. So this is exactly what we've just talked to in the introduction looking at the app screen. So now we've done this, all that remains is to, from the number of moves, to get a random move from 0 to 1 less than that count using arc random. So if count is 4, this will give us 0 to 3, this line here. and then simply to get the random from square that the tile's on from the move array, and then make this move on the board here by making the location of the empty square equal to what's on the from square, and then the from square equal to empty. We haven't moved the tiles there yet, because what we'll do is we'll make a defined number of random moves so that we shuffle this board, the board occupants, around a lot with moves that we know we can make, and then we'll, at the end of all this, move the tiles appropriately, much in the same way that we move them when we use the reset game function. Okay, so that's the make random move written, and now what we need is the function that calls randomize board for moves, and I'll put the whole function in because it's pretty self-explanatory. A randomized board for moves takes in the number of moves that we want to randomize the board for, so I don't know, we could say 30 moves on easy and hard 150 or something. And first thing we do is, up to the number of moves, is make a random move. So this will shuffle up the board, and once we've done that, our board occupants array with the integers in it obviously will be moved around. So now we loop through every square on the board and we get our tile number from that square. If it's empty, we ignore it, but if it isn't empty, then we need to set the position of this tile number at the new position on the board, because it'll have moved obviously. And this is exactly the same code as we do when we reset the board, so it should be fairly familiar. So the only thing left to do once we've done that is to go up to our button presses, which are somewhere up here. Here we are, hard pressed and easy pressed. And we can say here self and randomize board for moves, and let's randomize for 30 moves here, and let's also go here and we'll randomize say for 150 moves here, and save. And now we can run the application. I'll just close the version that's running at the moment down and hit run. And now here's the application. So just to check, we can move around and reset, and now if I hit easy, you can see that the board has mixed up with its 30 random moves. If I hit hard, then it mixes up a huge amount more, so it's made 150 random moves. And easy, problem with easy is it's not quite enough 30 to get all around the board with random moves, and hard is often maybe a bit too far with the 150 moves. But you can see as I keep clicking on it, sometimes we almost end up whole here, sometimes not. Anyway, so that's it then for the implementation of mixing up the board. There is a further refinement we could do to this function to make the randomizing a bit better, and that is to say that we can't allow a random move that's been made, we can't allow the tile that's just moved to then be moved back, because at the moment when the application's running, if I just start the application again, we could have the situation where this move was generated randomly, and then this move was the next random move, and this was the next random, and this was the next random move. And that's probably what's happening a little bit, especially with the easy, where we've only got 30 or so. So if you're unlucky, things don't end up mixed. But that's something to fix later on. For now on, we've got the easy and the hard buttons working, mixing up the board for us, and the reset game button. So thanks very much for listening. Comments, questions, criticisms welcome as always on YouTube.